Marcus Thompson has guided hunters through the Absaroka Range for 15 years. He's faced charging elk, cornered mountain lions, and bluff-charging grizzlies. The scar on his forearm is from a bear, but it's not the scar that wakes him at night. It's the memory of grey eyes that held his gaze for 3 seconds before disappearing into autumn forest. Those 3 seconds changed everything Marcus believed about what animals understand. The story begins 6 weeks earlier, on a morning in early September, when the aspens were just starting to turn. Marcus was checking trap lines in the high country, not his lines, but ones he was licensed to monitor for the state. Poachers sometimes ran illegal snares in this area, and part of his job involved documenting violations. He found the wolf at dawn. The animal was young, maybe 2 years old, tangled in a neck snare attached to a lodgepole pine. The cable had cut deep. The wolf's breathing came in shallow, rapid gasps. Its amber eyes tracked Marcus as he approached, but it didn't struggle anymore. It had probably been there for 2 days, maybe 3, long enough to know struggling only made the cable bite deeper. Marcus stopped 10 feet away. His rifle was slung across his back. His satellite phone was in his pack. Protocols said, document the scene, call it in, let fish and wildlife handle removal. Dead or alive, this was evidence of a crime. The wolf watched him, just watched, sides heaving, blood matting the grey fur around its neck. Marcus had hunted wolves legally. They were predators, competitors for the elk herds his clients paid thousands of dollars to hunt. He understood the ecosystem, understood management, understood that apex predators needed control. He'd never felt guilt about it. But this wasn't hunting. This was torture, slow strangulation, fear and pain stretched across days. He unslung his pack and pulled out wire cutters. His hands shook as he cut the cable. Not from fear. He'd handled injured animals before, from something else. The wolf's eyes never left his face, dark amber, perfectly focused, like it was memorizing him. The snare released with a soft, metallic whisper. The wolf lurched backward, stumbled, nearly fell. Marcus stepped back quickly, giving it space. The animal stood on shaking legs, blood dripping from the wound around its neck. A white line had already formed, where the cable had cut deepest. That would scar. They looked at each other across 15 feet of pine needle carpet. Marcus expected the wolf to bolt. Injured animals run. That's instinct. That's survival. The wolf dipped its head once, barely a movement, then turned and limped into the forest. 3 steps, pause, 3 more steps. It didn't look back. Marcus stood there for 5 minutes after it vanished. His heart hammered. His hands still shook. He'd just freed a wolf that would go back to killing the same elk he guided clients to hunt. His decision made no economic sense, no practical sense, but he couldn't have watched that animal suffer. He cut down the snare, documented the location, called it in to the warden's office. Illegal trap, already triggered, animal escaped before he arrived. Not exactly a lie. The warden thanked him and said they'd increase patrols in the area. Marcus packed out and drove home. He showered, ate dinner, went to bed. He thought about the wolf once before falling asleep, hoped it would survive, hoped the wound wouldn't get infected, then let it go. He thought that was the end of it. Animals don't remember. They don't understand debt. That's what he believed for exactly 43 days. On October 21st, Marcus returned to the Absaroka Range with a client named Craig from Houston. Big guy, first time hunting elk, nervous about bears. Marcus had given him the standard speech about making noise, storing food properly, carrying bear spray. Craig listened intently, asked good questions, followed instructions. They spotted a bull elk on the 2nd day, 6-point, mature, good size. Craig made a clean shot at 180 yards. The elk dropped in seconds. Quick, humane, exactly how it should be done. By the time they reached the animal, it was mid-afternoon. Marcus Field dressed it efficiently while Craig took photos. This was the moment clients paid for the trophy, the proof of harvest. Marcus had done this hundreds of times: cut, separate, remove, pack, routine. They worked as the sun lowered toward the western ridge. Marcus's hands moved automatically, knife work practiced and precise. Craig asked questions about the anatomy, about the meat, about how long the pack-out would take. Marcus was answering when the forest went silent. The ravens had been calling from the trees, loud and raucous, waiting for scraps. They went quiet first, then the smaller birds, then everything. In 15 years, Marcus had learned that silence means only one thing. The smell hit him next, musky, sharp, wrong. Every instinct screamed. He straightened slowly, knife still in hand, useless against what was coming. "Craig," he said quietly, "don't move. Don't make a sound." He saw the tracks in the mud before he saw the bear. Grizzly tracks, fresh, deep impressions in the soft ground near the creek bed, each print the size of a dinner plate. The bear had been here within the last hour, maybe less. Marcus's mind ran through calculations automatically. Wind direction, wrong, blowing from them toward the creek. The bear would smell the blood. Distance to the truck, 2 miles, too far to run. Bear spray on his belt, effective range 20 feet, useless if the bear decided to charge from a distance. Craig saw his face and went pale. "Is that Grizzly?" Marcus whispered. "Fresh kill smell travels for miles. We need to back away from the elk. Slowly, no sudden movements." They took 3 steps backward when Marcus saw it. The bear emerged from the willows 50 yards downstream. Female, massive, probably 600 pounds. Her coat was dark brown, almost black in the fading afternoon light. She was moving upwind, following her nose straight toward the scent of fresh blood and exposed meat. Marcus's training kicked in. He pulled Craig behind him, made himself large, spread his arms. "Hey, bear!" he shouted. "Hey, we're here! We're human!" The bear stopped, lifted her head, scented the air. For a moment, Marcus thought she might leave. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they decide it's not worth the confrontation, that the risk of humans outweighs the reward of an easy meal. The bear took 2 steps forward. Marcus pulled the bear spray from his belt, flipped off the safety. "Keep shouting," he told Craig. "Make noise. We're bigger than we are." They shouted together. Their voices echoed off the rocks, loud and aggressive and desperate. The bear paused again, swinging her massive head from side to side. Then she dropped to all 4s. Marcus's stomach dropped with her. That wasn't uncertainty. That wasn't a bluff charge position. That was a launch stance. "When I say run," Marcus said, voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system, "you run for that cluster of trees behind us. Climb if you can. Don't look back." "What about you?" "I'll use the spray. Give you time. On 3. 1. The bear charged, not a bluff, full speed, closing the distance impossibly fast. 600 pounds of predator covering ground in massive, ground-eating strides. Her ears were flat. Her eyes were locked on them. Marcus didn't get to 3. He raised the bear spray. His thumb found the trigger. The bear was 40 yards away. 30, 25, he's still too far. Bear spray works at close range, 15 to 20 feet maximum. Any farther, and it disperses uselessly. Any closer, and there's no time to react if it doesn't work. 20 yards. Marcus's hand closed on the trigger. Behind him, Craig was making a sound, not quite a scream, not quite a prayer. 15 yards. Time fractured. The bear's eyes were visible now, dark and focused and intent. Her mouth was open. Marcus could see her teeth. His finger tightened on the trigger. This was it. He'd survived 15 years in grizzly country. His luck had finally run out. 10 yards. Marcus squeezed the trigger. Nothing happened. His brain screamed malfunction, but his body had no time to process. The bear was 8 yards away, 7, close enough to see the individual guard hairs on her massive shoulders, close enough to smell her breath, close enough to die, Craig screamed. And from somewhere to his left, something grey and impossible stepped between him and death. For one frozen heartbeat, Marcus's brain couldn't process what he was seeing. The shape was wrong. The movement was wrong. Nothing should be moving toward a charging grizzly. Every animal in the forest should be running away. But this animal was running toward. The wolf hit the ground between Marcus and the bear with all 4 paws planted. Massive, male, grey coat with darker shoulders, and across its throat, visible even in the dimming light, a white scar like a necklace. The same wolf, the same animal Marcus had freed 43 days ago. The wolf's hackles stood straight up, doubling its apparent size. It didn't growl. It made a sound Marcus had never heard before, something between a roar and a bark, sharp and aggressive and utterly fearless. The charging grizzly tried to stop. Her claws dug furrows in the ground. Her momentum carried her forward another 3 feet before she halted, confused, 6 feet from the wolf. The wolf held its ground. Marcus's knees nearly buckled. His mind screamed that this was impossible, that wolves don't do this, that animals don't understand debt or gratitude or sacrifice. But the white scar across grey fur said otherwise. The wolf had come back. The grizzly's confusion lasted 3 seconds. Then her survival instincts recalibrated. She'd been charging food. Now there was an obstacle, a wolf, smaller, weaker, something she could kill. She rose onto her hind legs. Standing, she was over 7 feet tall. Her front paws hung in the air, claws extended, each one 3 inches long and curved like fishing hooks. In the fading light, she looked prehistoric, unstoppable. The wolf didn't back down. It adjusted its stance, weight distributed evenly, muscles coiled, its lips pulled back from its teeth. The sound it made now was different, lower, sustained, a warning that carried across the clearing. Marcus's hand still gripped the bear spray canister. He looked down. The safety was off. His thumb was on the trigger, but when he'd squeezed, nothing had come out. He tried again. Still nothing. The mechanism had jammed or frozen or failed. It didn't matter why. What mattered was he had no defense. "Marcus!" Craig's voice was barely audible behind him. "What's happening?" Marcus couldn't answer. He didn't have words for what he was watching. The grizzly dropped back to all fours and circled left. The wolf turned with her, maintaining the space between the bear and the humans. Its amber eyes never left the grizzly's face. Every movement was controlled, calculated. This wasn't panic. This wasn't instinct. This was strategy. The bear feinted right. The wolf shifted instantly, cutting off the angle. The bear tested again, lunging forward half a step. The wolf stood firm, didn't flinch, called her bluff with that same sustained warning growl. They were communicating. 2 apex predators speaking a language older than words. The bear was saying, "I'm bigger." The wolf was saying, "I don't care." Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. His scientific mind, the part trained in wildlife behavior, in predator dynamics, in animal psychology, kept trying to categorize what he was seeing. Territorial dispute, food competition, aberrant behavior, but none of those labels fit. The wolf wasn't defending territory. They were miles from any den site, and it was a lone male, not a pack. It wasn't competing for food. The elk carcass was behind Marcus, not between the animals. And aberrant behavior didn't explain the precision, the intelligence, the absolute deliberate nature of every movement. The grizzly circled again, wider this time, trying to get around. The wolf matched her step for step. Its injured shoulder, the one that had been tangled in the snare, showed dark against its coat. The animal had to be in pain. The wound was weeks old, but still healing. It didn't show any sign of weakness. Marcus took a slow breath and looked at the white scar across the wolf's throat, the line where the snare cable had cut through fur and skin, where another few hours would have meant death. He'd cut that cable, he'd freed this animal, and now this animal was dying for him. Because that's what was happening. Marcus could see it in the size difference, in the weight advantage, in the simple, brutal mathematics of a wolf versus a grizzly. The wolf might land a few bites, it might draw blood, but the bear would win. Bears always won against wolves in single combat. The wolf knew this. It had to know. Wolves understood hierarchy, understood strength, understood when they were outmatched, but it stood there anyway. Marcus's vision blurred. He blinked hard. This wasn't the time for emotion, for sentiment, for anthropomorphizing. This was survival, his survival, Craig's survival, and this wolf had chosen to make that survival possible. "We need to back away," Marcus whispered to Craig, while they're focused on each other. "Slow steps. Stay behind me. We can't just leave it. We don't have a choice." But Marcus's feet wouldn't move. He stood frozen, watching the standoff, watching this impossible act of, what? Reciprocity? Gratitude? Loyalty? The bear charged again, not at the wolf, around it, trying to use speed to get past the obstacle to the humans beyond. The wolf was faster. It cut the angle, intercepted, and for the first time made contact, teeth snapping inches from the bear's face. The grizzly reared back, startled. The wolf pressed forward half a step, not attacking but not yielding. The message was clear: "You'll have to go through me." The bear's ears flattened against her skull. Her body language shifted from opportunistic to aggressive. This wasn't about an easy meal anymore. This was about dominance, about who backed down, and neither animal was backing down. Marcus realized he'd stopped breathing. He forced air into his lungs. His hand found Craig's arm and pulled him back one step, then another. The wolf's ears flicked backward, heard them moving, but its eyes stayed locked on the grizzly. The grizzly lunged forward, testing again. The wolf met her movement with another snap, this time closer, this time connecting with air inches from the bear's nose. The sound was sharp, precise, a warning backed by capability. Marcus saw the bear hesitate, just for a moment, just long enough to recalculate. In that pause, Marcus got his first clear look at the wolf. It was larger than he'd remembered, probably 110, 120 pounds. Prime age, well-muscled, despite the injury. Its coat was thick with winter coming, grey mixed with black along the spine, lighter around the face. And that scar, white against grey, a clean line across the throat where the snare had bitten deep. Marcus had cut that cable on September 9th. He remembered the date because it was his daughter's birthday, and he'd called her that evening from the truck. Hadn't mentioned the wolf, hadn't mentioned the choice he'd made. Just talked about normal things while his hands still shook. Today was October 21st, 42 days, 6 weeks. The wolf had travelled, where? How far? The Absaroka Range was massive, hundreds of square miles of wilderness. Wolves had territories of 50, 60, sometimes 100 square miles. The chance of encountering the same animal in all that space was infinitesimal, unless the animal was looking for him. Marcus's rational mind rejected the thought immediately. Wolves don't track individual humans across weeks and miles. They don't remember specific people. They don't form attachments to someone who helped them once. Except this wolf was standing between him and a grizzly bear, risking certain death for no reason that biology could explain. The grizzly shifted her weight, and the wolf's attention snapped back instantly. No distraction, total focus. It adjusted its stance to match the bear's movement, maintaining the barrier. Craig's hand gripped Marcus's shoulder. "That's the same wolf," he whispered. "The one you told me about, from the snare." Marcus had told the story around the campfire last night, mentioned it casually, a strange encounter, a small act of mercy. He hadn't thought it mattered, hadn't thought he'd ever see the animal again. Yeah, Marcus said. His voice came out rough. That's him? He came back. I know. Marcus, that's not, animals don't. I know. But knowing something was impossible didn't make it less real. The wolf was here. The scar was visible. And the behavior, the deliberate positioning, the strategic movement, the absolute refusal to yield, spoke to something deeper than instinct. The grizzly made her decision. She rose onto her hind legs again, displaying her full height, her full threat. A last warning before committing to violence. This is what you're facing. This is what will kill you. Leave now. The wolf looked up at her. It seemed impossibly small from this angle, a fraction of the bear's mass, outweighed 3-1. It didn't leave. Instead, it did something that stopped Marcus's heart. The wolf glanced back over its shoulder just for a second. Its amber eyes found Marcus's face, held his gaze. There was no fear in those eyes, no panic, just something Marcus couldn't name, something that looked almost like reassurance. Then the wolf turned back to the grizzly and released a sound that made every hair on Marcus's body stand up. Not a howl, not a growl, something between a roar and a scream, primal and fierce and absolutely defiant. The bear dropped back to 4 legs and charged, this time not a feint, full commitment. The ground shook under her weight. She closed the distance in 2 massive bounds, claws extended, mouth open. The wolf met her. It happened too fast for Marcus to track every movement. The wolf dodged right as the bear's paw came down, the claws missing by inches. The wolf spun, lunged, caught the bear's shoulder with its teeth. The bear roared and twisted, trying to catch the smaller animal in her jaws. The wolf released and darted backward, barely avoiding the counterattack. They separated. Both animals circled, sides heaving. The wolf's shoulder showed fresh blood now. The old wound reopened, or a new injury, Marcus couldn't tell. The bear had blood on her shoulder where the wolf's teeth had connected. First blood on both sides. The rules had changed. This wasn't posturing anymore. This was combat. And the wolf was injured, exhausted, outmatched. Marcus's throat closed. He'd seen animals die before, had killed animals himself, cleanly and quickly and as humanely as possible. But he'd never had to watch one die for him. His chest felt crushed, his vision blurred. Not from fear anymore, from grief for something that hadn't even happened yet. The wolf's breathing was labored, its legs shook slightly. Blood darkened its shoulder fur, but when the grizzly tested forward again, the wolf held its ground. The sun was touching the western ridge now, painting the clearing in orange and gold. Long shadows stretched across the ground. In an hour, it would be dark. In the dark, the advantage would shift entirely to the bear. Marcus didn't think they had an hour. The grizzly circled left again, slower this time, calculating. She'd felt the wolf's teeth. She'd seen its speed. She was reassessing, looking for weakness, waiting for the smaller animal to tire. The wolf turned with her movement, always maintaining position. Its injured shoulder moved stiffly now. Each step looked painful. Blood dripped steadily from the wound, leaving dark spots on the pine needles. How long could it keep this up? How much blood could it lose before shock set in? Craig shifted behind Marcus and the movement caught the bear's attention. Her head swung toward them. For a moment, her focus left the wolf entirely. The wolf stepped forward into her line of sight. The message was unmistakable. Look at me, not them. Me, the bears. Attention snapped back to the wolf. She huffed, a sound like compressed air escaping, and pawed at the ground. Frustration. This should have been simple. Easy meat, no competition, no resistance. Now she had an obstacle that refused to move, refused to submit, refused to let her through. Marcus realized his hands were clenched into fists, his nails cut into his palms. Every instinct screamed at him to do something. Run, fight, intervene. But there was nothing he could do. His bear spray was useless. His rifle was designed for elk, not grizzlies. And even if he could get to it, even if he could take a shot, the chances of stopping a charging bear before it killed the wolf were nearly zero. He was helpless. He could only watch. The wolf made eye contact with him again, brief, deliberate, then back to the bear. That look said, "I've got this! Stay back!" Marcus wanted to shout at it to run, to save itself. The words stuck in his throat. Because the wolf wasn't acting on instinct, this was choice. Deliberate, conscious choice. The kind of choice Marcus thought only humans could make. The kind of choice that said, "You saved me. Now I save you." The grizzly charged again. Not full speed this time, a probing attack, testing the wolf's reaction time. The wolf dodged left, and the bear anticipated, swiping with her right paw. The claws caught fur, maybe flesh. The wolf yelped, sharp, pained, but twisted away before the bear could follow up. They separated again. The wolf limped now, favoring its left rear leg. The blood flow from its shoulder had increased. Its breathing came in quick, shallow pants. It was losing. Slowly, inevitably, it was losing. The bear sensed it. She pressed forward, not charging, just advancing steadily. The wolf gave ground for the first time, backing up 2 steps, then 3. Marcus's vision tunneled. His breath came in short gasps. This was ending. The wolf had fought courageously, impossibly, but courage didn't outweigh 600 pounds of apex predator. The bear advanced another step. The wolf backed up to maintain distance. Another step, another. The wolf was being pushed back toward the tree line, losing the open ground that had given it room to maneuver. In the trees, trapped against trunks and deadfall, it would be over in seconds. "No," Marcus whispered. "Please, run! Just run!" The wolf's ears flicked backward, heard him, but it didn't run. The grizzly took another step. The wolf's haunches brushed against a fallen log, nowhere left to retreat. The bear rose onto her hind legs one final time. This was it, the end position. From here, she would drop down, lunge forward, and finish this. The wolf looked impossibly small beneath her, wounded, bleeding, exhausted. Its amber eyes looked up at 7 feet of muscle and fury and certain death. Marcus watched, frozen, as the wolf prepared to die for him. He wanted to scream, to throw rocks, to do anything to distract the bear, but his body wouldn't obey. He could only stand there, tears streaming down his face, watching this animal, this creature he'd saved once, sacrifice everything for him. The bear dropped to all fours, and the wolf did something that changed everything. Instead of backing away, instead of accepting the inevitable, the wolf lunged forward, not at the bear's body, at her face, teeth bared, no hesitation, pure aggression. The move was so unexpected, so contrary to every defensive strategy the wolf had used, that the bear reared back in surprise. The wolf's teeth connected with the bear's nose. The grizzly roared, not threatening but in genuine pain, and staggered backward. The wolf didn't pursue. It held its ground, sides heaving, blood dripping, but standing firm in the space it had just reclaimed. The dynamics had shifted. The grizzly shook her massive head, pawing at her nose where the wolf's teeth had struck. Blood showed dark on her muzzle. She huffed repeatedly, the sound carrying pain and confusion and anger. The wolf stood 8 feet away, not advancing, not retreating, waiting. For a long moment nothing moved except the wind through the pines. The sun slipped lower, the shadows deepened, and 2 apex predators faced each other across ground, stained with both their blood. The bear took a step backward. Marcus's heart leaped. Maybe this was it. Maybe the bear had decided it wasn't worth it. Maybe she would leave. But then she stopped, lowered her head, her ears flattened against her skull. Not submission, but rage. She charged again, this time with no hesitation, no testing, just pure commitment to ending this. She closed the distance in massive bounds, faster than before, driven by pain and frustration. The wolf tried to dodge. Its injured leg betrayed it. The timing was off by half a second. The bear's paw caught its hindquarters and sent it tumbling sideways into the dirt. Craig gasped. Marcus's stomach dropped. The wolf rolled with the impact and came up on 3 legs, the 4th held close to its body. New blood showed on its flank. The bear was already turning, already positioning for the killing blow. This was it. This was the end Marcus had been dreading. The wolf was down, injured, unable to maneuver. The next strike would be fatal. The bear reared up for leverage. Her shadow fell across the wolf like a blanket. From this position, she could bring her full weight down, crush bone and spine, end it instantly. The wolf looked up at her. It didn't try to run. It couldn't. One rear leg useless, one front shoulder torn, blood loss making its movements sluggish. It had given everything. It wasn't enough. Marcus heard himself make a sound, something between a sob and a shout. His body finally moved. He took 3 steps forward, arms raised, screaming wordlessly. If the bear killed the wolf, maybe she'd be satisfied. Maybe she'd leave. But if not, if she turned on them next, at least he wouldn't die watching this animal's sacrifice mean nothing. The bear's attention didn't shift. She was locked on the wolf, locked on finishing what she'd started. She dropped forward, front paws coming down with enough force to shatter ribs. The wolf wasn't there. Somehow, impossibly, running on 3 legs and pure will, it had thrown itself sideways. The bear's paws hit earth where the wolf had been half a second before. The impact sent up a cloud of dust and pine needles. The wolf landed badly, stumbled, nearly went down, but it stayed on its feet. Barely. Its breathing sounded wet now, labored. Blood ran freely from multiple wounds. It was dying. Standing, but dying. Marcus knew the signs. He'd seen enough injured animals to recognize when shock was setting in, when blood loss reached critical levels, when the body was running on nothing but adrenaline, and that adrenaline was almost gone. The wolf had minutes left, maybe less. The bear turned, slower now. She was tiring too. The wound on her nose bled steadily. The bite on her shoulder was deeper than Marcus had realized. She was hurt, angry, but also beginning to calculate cost. How much injury was an elk carcass worth? How much blood was this fight costing her? The animals faced each other again. Both wounded, both exhausted. The standoff had lasted maybe 8 minutes. It felt like hours. The wolf swayed on its feet. Its amber eyes were glazing slightly, shock, blood loss, exhaustion. But when the bear took a step forward, testing, the wolf bared its teeth and growled. That growl came out weaker than before, thready, but still defiant. Marcus's chest felt crushed. He'd seen courage before, had seen animals fight for their young, fight to protect their pack, fight when cornered with no escape. But he'd never seen anything like this. This wolf had no evolutionary reason to be here, no biological imperative, no survival advantage. It was here by choice, and that choice was killing it. "Please," Marcus whispered. "Please just leave. You've done enough. Just go." The wolf's ears flicked backward, heard him, but it didn't move. The bear circled again, looking for an opening. The wolf turned with her, movements slow and pained, but still controlled, still strategic, still refusing to yield. They were both dying in slow motion. This fight couldn't continue. Something had to break. Marcus closed his eyes. He couldn't watch anymore, couldn't watch this animal die for him, couldn't witness the end of something so impossible and brave and... The wolf's snarl changed pitch. Marcus's eyes snapped open. The wolf was advancing, not retreating, not holding ground, advancing. On 3 functional legs, bleeding from multiple wounds, the wolf moved forward. 1 step, 2, 3. Its lips pulled back from its teeth in a display that was pure aggression. The sound coming from its throat was different now, not a warning, not a defense, a challenge. The bear stopped circling. Her massive head tilted slightly, confused by this shift in behavior. The injured animal should be retreating, should be submitting, should be acknowledging defeat. Instead, it was attacking. The wolf lunged, not at the body, it didn't have the strength left for that, at the face, at the eyes, at the most vulnerable targets. Its teeth snapped inches from the bear's left eye. The bear jerked backward, startled. The wolf pressed forward, not giving her time to recover. Another snap at the face, another. Each movement cost it. Marcus could see the pain in every step, the way its injured leg dragged, the way its whole body shook with effort. But the aggression was working. The bear backed up 2 steps. The wolf followed. Another lunge, another snap at the vulnerable nose that was already bleeding. The grizzly flinched, pawing at her face, trying to protect the injury. For the first time since the standoff began, the bear looked uncertain. The wolf drove forward again. It was pure bluff now. The animal had no strength left for sustained combat. But the bear didn't know that. All she knew was that every time she tried to advance, she got teeth near her eyes, near her nose, targeting the places that could blind her, cripple her, make survival in the wilderness impossible. The cost-benefit calculation was shifting. The grizzly took another step backward, then another. She was no longer circling, no longer testing. She was retreating. The wolf matched her step for step, maintaining the pressure. Its legs trembled. Blood dripped steadily from its shoulder and flank. But it kept moving forward, kept pressing the advantage, kept acting like an animal with nothing to lose. Maybe because it didn't. Maybe because it had already decided that protecting Marcus was worth dying for, and dying while advancing was better than dying while retreating. The bear backed up 10 feet, 15. She shook her head, huffed, pawed at the ground one final time, a last gesture of frustration and dominance. Then she turned and walked into the trees, not running, not charging away in defeat, just leaving, deciding this wasn't worth it. The elk carcass wasn't worth her nose, her eyes, her ability to hunt for the rest of her life. The wolf stood motionless, watching the trees where the bear had vanished. Its sides heaved with each breath, its injured leg finally gave out, and it sank partially down, catching itself with its good legs. But it stayed upright, stayed watching, making sure the threat was really gone. Marcus counted seconds, 10, 20, 30. The forest sounds slowly returned. A raven called, distant and cautious. The wind rustled the aspen leaves. The world resumed moving. The bear was gone. They'd survived. The wolf turned around slowly, carefully, and looked at Marcus across 20 feet of clearing. Their eyes met. Marcus dropped to his knees. The movement was involuntary. His legs simply stopped holding him. He knelt there in the pine needles and dirt, his hands shaking, his vision blurred, his whole body racked with something he couldn't name. Not relief, not gratitude, something bigger than both. The wolf watched him. Its amber eyes were clear now, the shock fading as the adrenaline ebbed. It took one step toward him, then stopped as if unsure. "Thank you," Marcus whispered. His voice broke on the words. "Thank you." The wolf's ears flicked forward, heard him, understood, maybe, the emotion, if not the words. Marcus wanted to go to it, to check its injuries, to help the way it had helped him. But he knew better. It was still a wild animal, still unpredictable. And wounded animals were dangerous, even ones that had just saved your life. Especially ones that had just saved your life. The wolf took another step, then paused. It looked at Marcus for a long moment. Then it looked past him, at the elk carcass still lying in the clearing, back to Marcus. The wolf limped 3 more steps, closer now, only 10 feet away. It stopped, lowered its head once, not submission, something else, something that looked almost like a nod. Then it touched its nose to the ground, deliberately, gently, like acknowledgement, like goodbye. When it raised its head, its eyes found Marcus's one last time, held his gaze for 3 seconds that felt like infinity. Then the wolf turned and limped into the forest. Marcus watched the trees long after the grey shape disappeared. His whole body shook. Behind him, Craig was talking, asking questions, trying to make sense of it. But the words were just noise, because Marcus had just witnessed something that couldn't be explained. Marcus stayed on his knees long after the wolf vanished. His hands pressed into the dirt, his head bowed, his breath coming in ragged gasps that had nothing to do with exertion. Craig's hand touched his shoulder. Marcus, are you hurt? Did the bear? I'm fine. The words came out rough, barely audible. I'm not hurt. Then what? That wolf. Marcus lifted his head, stared at the trees where the animal had disappeared. That wolf came back for me. Craig was silent for a moment then. I know, I saw. No. Marcus shook his head. You saw what happened, but you don't. His voice broke. He tried again. 42 days ago, I cut a snare off that animal's neck. It was dying. I saved it, and today it came back. It tracked me somehow, found me somehow, and stood between me and a grizzly bear. It nearly died. It should have died. But it didn't run, it didn't leave, it stayed until we were safe. He looked up at Craig. Tears ran freely down his face now. He didn't try to hide them. Animals don't do that. They're not supposed to be able to do that. They don't remember specific people. They don't understand debt or gratitude or... He stopped, his throat closing. Or sacrifice. Craig crouched beside him. His own hands were shaking. But it did. Yeah. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. It did. They stayed like that for several minutes, 2 men kneeling in a clearing while the sun set and the temperature dropped and the reality of what they'd witnessed slowly, impossibly, settled into their bones. Finally, Marcus stood. His legs felt unsteady. He walked slowly to where the wolf had made its stand. The ground was torn up from the fighting, scored with claw marks, stained with blood. Both animals' blood mixed together in the dirt. He knelt again and touched the blood, still warm, still wet. Proof that this had happened, that it was real, not some stress-induced hallucination or dream. Craig had pulled out his phone during the standoff. Marcus hadn't noticed, had been too focused on the wolf, on the bear, on staying alive. But Craig had taken photos. Shaky, blurred from his trembling hands, but photos nonetheless. Look, Craig said, holding out the phone. Marcus looked at the screen. The image showed the wolf mid-stance, positioned between them and the bear. The lighting was poor, the focus soft, but the details were visible. Grey coat, darker shoulders, and across the throat, catching the fading sunlight, a white scar like a collar. The same wolf. Undeniable proof. Marcus touched the screen with one finger, tracing the line of that scar. He'd cut the cable that made it. His hands, his choice, his moment of mercy toward an animal he'd been taught to see as a competitor. And that animal had remembered. Send me that photo, Marcus said quietly. I'll send you all of them. Craig scrolled through his phone. I got maybe a dozen. They're not great quality, but they're perfect. Marcus stood, still looking at the image. They're proof. Proof of what? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He looked at the forest, at the trees where the wolf had disappeared, at the blood on the ground, at the elk carcass they'd come here to harvest. Proof that I've been wrong, he said finally. About everything. They packed out the elk meat in silence. It took 3 trips. Neither of them wanted to stay in the clearing overnight. Not with the scent of blood everywhere, not with the possibility of the bear returning. They worked efficiently, speaking only when necessary, the weight of what they'd witnessed pressing down on them. On the final trip, Marcus stopped at the spot where the wolf had stood. The blood was already drying, turning dark against the pine needles. By tomorrow, it would be gone. Rain or wind or scavengers would erase the physical evidence. But the memory wouldn't erase. Marcus knew that with absolute certainty. This moment was carved into him now, permanent and unchangeable. He thought about the wolf, wounded and bleeding, limping away into the forest. Was it still alive? Had the injuries been too severe? Would it survive the night, the week, the winter? He had no way to know, no way to find out. The wolf had disappeared back into the wilderness it came from, and Marcus would probably never see it again. The thought made his chest ache. Thank you, he whispered to the empty clearing. I don't know if you understood what you did. I don't know if you remember me the way I'll remember you, but thank you. For my life. For showing me something I needed to see. For being impossible. The wind moved through the trees. A raven called in the distance. The forest gave no answer. Marcus shouldered his pack and followed Craig back to the truck. They drove in silence for the first hour. Then Craig spoke. Are you going to tell anyone about this? Marcus thought about that. Thought about how it would sound. A wolf came back to save me. The same one I rescued. It remembered me across 6 weeks and hundreds of miles. It stood down a grizzly bear for me. Who would believe it? He said quietly. I believe it. I saw it. You saw it, and you're asking if I'm going to tell anyone. That's how impossible it was. Craig was quiet for a moment. Then, I have the photos. Photos can be explained away. Wrong place, wrong time, coincidence, territorial behavior. The wolf wasn't protecting us, it was defending a kill site. The bear wasn't really charging, it was bluff behavior. People will find explanations that fit what they already believe about animals. What do you believe? Marcus watched the road unspool ahead of them, the headlights cutting through gathering darkness. I believe that wolf remembered, he said. I believe it understood what I did for it. And I believe it chose to return that kindness, even though that choice nearly killed it. I believe animals are capable of things we've decided they can't be capable of. Memory, gratitude, moral reasoning, sacrifice. He paused, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. I believe I've been wrong about what consciousness means, about where we draw the line between human and animal, about what matters. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. And I believe I can't hunt anymore. Marcus Thompson quit guiding hunts the following spring. The decision surprised no one who heard the story, or at least the version of it he told. Bear encounter, close call, time to step back. He didn't mention the wolf to most people. How could he? The story sounded absurd even to him, and he'd lived it, but he told me. 3 years later, sitting in a coffee shop in Bozeman, he told me everything. His hands shook when he pulled out his phone and showed me the photos Craig had taken, blurred, poorly lit, but unmistakable. A grey wolf with a white scar across its throat, standing between 2 men and a charging grizzly. People ask me if I'm sure about what happened. Marcus said, staring at the image on his screen. If maybe the wolf was just defending territory, if maybe I've built this up in my memory, made it more than it was. He looked up at me. His eyes were wet. I show them these photos. You can see the scar on the wolf's neck. You can see it standing between us and the bear. The images are real, but they ask about interpretation, about projecting human emotions onto animals. He set the phone down on the table between us. I don't have a good answer for them. What I have is this. That wolf had no reason to come back, no reason to risk its life. Wolves don't face down grizzly bears, it's suicide, but it did. It remembered me. It understood what I'd done, and it chose to return that mercy. His voice broke on the last word. He took a moment, breathing slowly, composing himself. That's what breaks me, the choice. Because if that wolf could choose compassion, choose sacrifice, choose loyalty across species, then what else have I been wrong about? What other consciousness have I dismissed? What other lives have I taken without understanding what I was taking? Marcus works in wildlife rehabilitation now. He treats injured animals, releases them when they're healed, documents their recoveries. He's good at it. Patient, gentle, present in a way that speaks to deep respect. He still goes to the Absaroka Range sometimes, hikes the high country, camps near where it happened. He's looking for the wolf. He admitted that without embarrassment, hoping for one more glimpse of grey fur and amber eyes. He's never seen it again. I don't know if it survived, he told me. The injuries were severe, blood loss, shock, the wound on its shoulder reopening. Wolves are tough, but they're not invincible. It might have died that night. It might have made it back to a pack and recovered. I'll never know. He finished his coffee, stared out the window at the mountains. But I hope it lived. I hope somewhere in that wilderness there's a grey wolf with a white scar who survived, who's still out there. Because if something that capable of consciousness, of choice, of... He paused, searching for the word. Of grace. If something that remarkable died because it saved me, I don't know how to carry that. I asked him if he regrets freeing the wolf that day in September. If knowing what it would cost, the wolf's injuries, its near death, the transformation of his own life, if he would make a different choice. He didn't hesitate. No, I'd do it again. I'd free it again, because that moment when I cut that snare, when I chose mercy over convenience, that moment made everything else possible. The wolf's choice, my transformation, this conversation, everything stemmed from that first act of compassion. He smiled then, small and sad. Maybe that's the real lesson, not that animals are capable of extraordinary things, we know they are, but that our choices matter more than we think. That moment of mercy echoed forward. It changed that wolf's fate. It changed mine. It changed how I see the world, how I move through it, what I value. Marcus still carries that photo, not in his phone anymore. He had it printed, laminated, keeps it in his wallet. When people ask why he quit hunting, why he changed careers, why he seems different now, he sometimes shows them. Most see a blurry wolf and an out-of-focus bear, standard wildlife photography. Some see what Marcus sees, proof that the line between human and animal, between instinct and consciousness, between them and us, that line is not where we thought it was. Maybe it was never there at all. If you've witnessed something in nature that changed everything you believed, write in the comments. Share your own story. I want to hear it. I've spent 3 years researching this story. I've spoken to wildlife biologists, animal behaviorists, cognition researchers. Most offer explanations rooted in instinct, coincidence, territorial behavior. Some admit the limitations of current understanding about animal consciousness, but I keep returning to Marcus's words. That wolf chose. Maybe that's what shakes us about stories like this. Not that animals are capable of extraordinary things, we know they are, but that they might be capable of the same things we pride ourselves on: memory, gratitude, sacrifice. The conscious choice to risk everything for someone who once showed mercy. Marcus still carries a photo of that wolf. The image is blurred. Craig's hands were shaking when he took it, but you can see the white scar across grey fur. You can see amber eyes looking toward the camera. Marcus says he keeps it to remember, but remember what exactly? He can't quite articulate. I think I understand. He keeps it to remember that the line between human and animal, between instinct and consciousness, between them and us, that line is not where we thought it was. Maybe it was never there at all, and that changes everything.